Let's get started. Hey, what we're doing is we're back on. Tim left us last week kind of going through the book of Matthew chapter 9, the great physician. We are sorry for the audio issues of that. If you didn't get to hear that, we're really sorry about that. We'll try to fix it for future. But he did a great job last week leading us through that. This week, we're picking up back into our series on Luke, and we'll be in Luke chapter 5, although we're going to start in Luke 4, but that'll be made clear in a second. Luke 1:4 says this, that you may have certainty concerning the things that you have been taught. And my desire is as we study God's word, specifically the book of Luke, that you feel that there is certainty in God's truth. This is not just a book that has nice ideas or, oh, he was a good teacher. No, this is truth for life. It's what we live for. And so I want to encourage you guys to look into this. So let me give you context of where we're at. What has just happened 2 weeks ago when we were looking at this is that Jesus has come to Capernaum, which is kind of his hometown. It's kind of his home base. We know that he has done miracles there that was talked about when he was in his town of Nazareth, most likely the healing of the paralytic man. We know that he was in the synagogue and that cast out a demon in the synagogue. And then we know this. And he arose and left the synagogue and entered Simon's home. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was ill with a high fever, and they appealed to him on her behalf, and Jesus ends up healing her. And so Simon, at this moment, is a fisherman. He lives in Capernaum. This is his hometown. And so because of this, what Simon has experienced is that there's this man, Jesus, who's been teaching in the synagogue, has been doing some healings. He has had him into his home, and he has healed his mother-in-law, but he is a fisherman. That's what he does. It's what he probably has been doing since he was a young boy. He's been in that lake, in that Sea of Galilee, and he has been fishing that spot. In Luke chapter 5, verse 1, it says this. On one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, which is what we would call today the Sea of Galilee. Now, what that means is he starts to preach. People start coming down to the beach to hear him. They keep pressing and pressing and pressing in on him. This is actually the beach that is just outside Capernaum. This is actually a picture from there. We enjoyed this spot when we were there. It's actually a really beautiful spot. You can see just how calm the water is. But if you can imagine, he's at this edge, and they just keep pushing in and pushing in and pushing in. And so what's happening is that as more people come, they're coming because obviously there's healings that have been taking place, but he is now teaching. And he saw two boats by the lake, but the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the people from the boat. So what we get is that he sees these boats, he jumps in once, tells Simon, hey, would you push me out a little bit? They kind of drop a rock or an anchor, and he begins to teach these people that have been pushing in on this beach. Luke does not tell us what he teaches. That's not the point of what Luke is trying to get across. Luke is explaining what's happening to Simon. Now, Simon is a fisherman. And so being a fisherman, he kind of knows his business. He's been doing this fishing thing for a while, and he's been cleaning his nets. He's over off the side, and so Jesus, again, healed his mother-in-law. He knows that he's a teacher. He knows that he said these things, but he's gotten into his boat. Now, let me tell you something. Gets into your boat, you watch what happens in your boat, right? So he's watching what takes place. Look what happens next. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. Now, I want you to understand this. Jesus, by what we understand, was either a carpenter or a mason, depending on what you know, right? And he's telling a fisherman, let's go fish. I'm going to say this to you. It's one of those things where at this moment, Simon, as soon as he says that, goes, you don't know what you're talking about. This is not the time to fish. We were out fishing when it was time to fish, right? So Jesus, this carpenter, goes, hey, I want you to go out to the deep and let down your nets. And I'm sure at this moment, Simon's like, great, listen, if I ever showed up to your place of business and then told you how you should do your job, most of you would be like, thanks, I got it, right? Because the fact is like, I'm not gonna go into certain people's like, oh, let me tell you, I wouldn't go to Diana and say, look, let me tell you how to cut this hair so you can do a nice layered look. She knows that is nothing for me. Hey, this color, let's go with this color. She would say, no. You don't know what you're talking about. She goes, I've been doing hair a long time. You just go do your pastor thing. You don't come tell me how to do hair. It kind of feels this way. Jesus is coming in going, hey, let's just go into the deep water and let down your nets. Watch what Peter says. And Simon answered him, Master, we have toiled all night and took nothing. So what he's saying is, we went and fished when you were supposed to fish, and there is nothing. Which means if you think you're going to catch fish when you're not supposed to be fishing, you're really wrong. But look at the next answer. But at your word, I will let down the nets. Why would a fisherman let a carpenter tell him to go into the deep and let down his nets when Peter knows this is not the time to fish? Because of this. Because he's heard that he's healed a man who was paralyzed. He's been teaching. He healed his mother-in-law of a fever, and he watched him cast out a demon. And there is something that when Jesus said, let down your nets, although he's tired, they were cleaning their nets. Day's over. He goes, at your word. That's where I want us to start for the first part of our message. I'm going to tell you something about Jesus. Jesus will ask you to do things that do not make sense at a time in which it doesn't make sense because he knows better. And the reason why we do things that do not make sense at a time when it does not make sense is because he asks. Let me just say to you that we need to be a people that need to trust in this carpenter, that when he says go and do and try and be, our answer needs to be the same as Simon Peter's, which says, at your word, I do it. Let me illustrate it for you this way. I graduated Bible college in 5 years. Yes, 5 years, folks. That's kind of the pastor that you had. It took me an extra year to graduate, all right? So 5 years, I'm working for UPS. I have just begun driving the training truck for the UPS. I'm in the little brown truck, right? But I have no packages. The training truck has actually airplane seats bolted to it, and they put a group of us in, and we would drive around, right? I got to drive it one time. I did a great job. I actually knew how to drive stick, which was fun to be with guys who have never driven stick before, all right? So we're in this old brown truck, and I'm getting ready. And if I get this promotion, I'll make $60,000 a year graduating from Bible college. $60,000 back in that day, it was like, woo, right? So I start doing the training on the truck. That next week, I get a phone call from a guy named Dave Osborne. Dave Osborne had been working at a place called Christian Encounter Ministries, which works with troubled teenagers, 16 to 24. And we're talking some kids that have gone through a ton of stuff. Dave Osborne and I were in youth group together. He was a senior when I was a freshman. Dave calls me and goes, Jeff, you've been on my heart, and I believe that you are supposed to come. God is telling me that you're supposed to come and be an intern at the ranch. By the way, there's no pay. You got to raise your own support. You have to leave everything else behind. And by the way, it's 24/7, 365. You live in the dorms with the kids. You eat with the kids. You do everything with the kids. We give you 2 hours a week off. Come on down. But I got to leave a job that's about to pay me $60,000 to go work with troubled teenagers. And I said to them, and I will never forget these words, Dave, if it wasn't for these 7 things, and I listed all 7 of them, all of them legitimate, none of them made up, if it wasn't for these 7 things, I would be there next week. A week later, I am in my grandmother's Nova driving to Christian Encounter Ministries. All 7 of those things went away, just disintegrated. And I remembered that when I started Bible college, I went away, fasted, and told God, I will go wherever you lead me. Why do I pray these things? So now I'm raising support to go be with troubled kids. And we are talking truly troubled kids. I had a girl, she started prostitution at 12 years old. Her pimp was her mom because her mom got tired of doing it and found out that her daughter made more money than her. I had a kid who was doing male prostitution because they paid more and it let him do his drug habit. I had kids that had been jumped into gangs and had caused a lot of damage in their gangs. I had kids that were mentally abused, sexually abused, kids who were fighting out, acting out, and that's what I chose. And by the way, none of my skill sets were used. I grew up Beaver Cleaver family. Went to church every Sunday, wore my little tie most Sundays, never did drugs, never did alcohol, never did any of that stuff in high school. Never did, seriously, Beaver, Cleaver, simply, parents, everyone loved my mom and dad, everything was great, things were awesome, and I'm now sitting with kids which I have nothing to say to them. I have no skill set for them. And yet God knew that was the place for me. And for 6 months, truly, nonstop, living with them in the dorms, working with them on work program, having with them, doing dishes, doing all this stuff, milking the cow, that's what I got to do. And it was probably the best thing I ever did for my ministry, or that God allowed me to do for my ministry. It allowed me to see the hurting of kids in a completely different way, and when I became a youth pastor, I was able to cut through so much junk and see kids in a whole new light. They never let me use my skill sets. I didn't speak once until the very last Sunday when they prayed me out, I preached, and they all said, "Why were you not preaching the whole time you were here?" And my advisor turned to them and said, "Because that's not why God had him here." I want you to understand something. When God tells you to let down your nets, even though it doesn't make sense, he is doing it for your fulfillment. And will do something in you that you could never imagine. But are you going to be like Simon Peter that goes, "You know what? I kind of know fishing, carpenter boy. But at your word, I'm going to do this." And when you do things at the word of Christ, you'll be blown away what he does. And I just want to say to you, some of you are like, "Well, what do you mean? How did you hear God?" I just know that God has used people. God has used his word at times. He has used his spirit to speak to me and say, "Jeff, this is what you're supposed to do." Scary? Yes. Easy? No. Fulfilling? Absolutely. And some of you right now are very nervous because your fear is that if you really do this, God's going to ask you to go to deepest, darkest Africa, and you don't want to go to deepest, darkest Africa. But can I tell you, God doesn't take everyone and send them to deepest, darkest Africa. What he mainly does is he tells you to start being used in the place where he has you in a way in which you need to be used. When you say, God, if you say, and again, I've heard story after story after story where God goes, "Listen, I want you to let down your nets," and people are like, "Okay," and they do, and they're blown away that what he had for them was far more than whatever they had on their plan. Are we going to be those that when God says do something at an inopportune time in a way that doesn't make sense to us, if he says it, we do it because at his word we let down our nets? Because that is when we have started putting our focus and trust on the one whose word matters. And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. And at this moment, I'm sure Simon's like, "Really? All night long? Now, yeah, carpenter boy, woo, right?" Look at this next one. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. That partners were who? James and John. Peter, James, and John were partners in this this fishing business right off the shore of Capernaum. And guess what? That morning, when Simon got up, he goes, "You know what I'm going to be tomorrow? Fisherman. You know what I'm going to be next week? Fisherman. You know what I'm going to be next year? Fisherman." He goes, "I'm going to die in this boat." He wasn't ready for Jesus to get into his boat. Did you hear me? He wasn't ready for Jesus to get into his boat. Because all of a sudden now, his boat is practically sinking because of all the fish that are coming into his boat, because the guy told me to put down my nets when it didn't make sense at a time in which you don't catch fish. But Simon Peter saw it. He fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." The magnitude of what just happened, the fact that this could only be by a miracle, that this could only be by the power of God, brings Simon Peter to his knees, and the only thing he can say is, "Please get away from me. I am not holy enough. I am too sinful for you to be in my presence." I don't know if you've ever experienced that. It's happened to me a few times where you're around people and you go, I don't deserve to be in this person's presence. I feel too sinful. I feel too dirty. I feel like this is just inappropriate. And you wish they would just go away, because where you are, they are holy. And so what you have in Simon Peter is he's putting all this together. He's putting together the messages, the teaching, the healing of his mother-in-law. He's putting together the casting out of the demons. He's putting together all that has been done. And now as his boat is overflowing, he's going, I don't deserve to be in your presence. There's something amazing that happens when you fully grasp the holiness of Jesus Christ. I want to say something to you. For you to be fully a follower of Christ, you've got to come to the moment that just happened to Simon Peter. You've got to come to this moment where you see your sin and realize he is so holy. How in the world could he love you? How in the world could he accept you? And it's in that contrite moment that God goes, now I have you where I want you. In your brokenness, when you are acknowledging how simple you are and how much you need a Savior, you're not comparing yourself to other people. You're not putting yourself on a scale. You're saying, in my sinfulness, I should not have this Jesus in my presence, and yet he's there, ever present, and he wants to save you. For he and all were with him were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. Verse 10. And also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men. Do not be afraid. He woke up a fisherman. And now, this guy who just practically sunk his boat says, you're going to walk away from all this. You're going to catch men. You're going to catch men. That's not how he saw the day coming. But if Jesus grabs your heart, I'm telling you, your life will change. The things that once were important will change. The things that once were valuable will not be as valuable. When you come to Jesus, all of a sudden, things change. Think of Simon. Simon Peter is going to become an interesting character. Simon, Peter, James, and John become what we call the closest three. They're the closest to Jesus. Transfiguration, those moments. John becomes the apostle that Jesus loved, meaning that he was so close to Jesus. Matter of fact, John writes the book of John, where we get John 3:16. John is just this place where he is in this place of love. James becomes powerfully used by God. Peter, who will stick his foot in his mouth over and over and over again. By the way, when he denies Jesus 3 times, isn't it interesting where Jesus goes to find him? Because what did he do? He came back to go fishing. Because when we're broken, don't we always go back to what we know? But I want you to understand something. I know that for many of you, you grew up in churches where the apostles were all put on stained glass windows and they look all holy and stuff, or statues. Do you know the other nickname besides sons of Zebedee that James and John had? Sons of thunder. They fought a lot. I mean, literally, can you imagine having as your partners 2 brothers that fought till they got to the point that they got called sons of thunder? Those are your partners. That's who Peter's hanging out with. Any of you fight with your siblings? Any of you sibling fighting a little bit, that kind of issue? My sister and I, but I get it. My dad tells me that I get it legitimately. His oldest sister and him had a hate-hate relationship. They fought. My dad just goes, it was literally every day, it was fully on. He goes, the story that he remembers the most, they were in the kitchen fighting. His sister picked up a butcher knife, threw it at him. He moved his head. The butcher knife went through the door and poked the point out the other side as my grandfather was walking into the kitchen. He goes, Jeff, let me say this. When your father spanks you with the flat edge of a butcher knife, again, when your father spanks you with a flat edge of a butcher knife, you do not flinch. Think about that. He goes, you will lose something if you flinch. My dad goes, all I know is he picked the butcher knife out of the door. Next thing I know, I was getting spanked with it. He goes, that's what happened with my family. They fought all the time. Their stories have been told to me by aunts and uncles have told me about how my dad and my aunt would fight. Sons of Thunder, that's your partners, Peter. But it isn't amazing that God used 3 fishermen from Galilee to be the closest ones to him as a group of people that would begin to transform the world. You know what I love about the story? Is that God is not looking for us to have all our stuff together. God's not looking for us to not have bad nicknames or bad personalities or being known for being. He will use us if we will follow him. We'll follow him. Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men. Do you realize his life is about to change? Now watch this. Verse 11. When they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. Folks, this is no small thing. They pulled their boats into shore one last time. Nets are over there. Boats, I'm sure people think, well, he had enough fish maybe because to make it through the winter. I don't know. He had a lot of fish. But they walk away, and the boats are now up for grabs. And I don't know, honestly, what Simon Peter did is he's walking away. We know he has a wife because we know he has a mother-in-law, right? I don't know if he's looking at his wife going, here we go. I'm just going to follow him. And they had no idea what is about to happen. They had no idea about what we already know. We had no idea that they were going to watch him walk on water. They had no idea that he was going to be the one that calms the storm. They had no idea that he was going to feed 5,000. They had no idea of all the Pharisees and the teachers that would come after him, that they would be picked on and said, oh, look at those who eat with tax collectors and sinners that are drunkards and don't wash their hands. That's another sermon. And all these issues that are going to go on with him. They had no idea that he was going to take them around the Sea of Galilee 3 times. And they had no idea that he was going to go and flip tables or leave them in Samaria, making them go into town while he sits with a Samaritan woman. They had no idea what he was going to do, but this is what they knew. He said, come follow me. They looked at all the fish in the boat and they said, we want to be where he is. We want to put our stock, our hope in with this guy. And they followed him. And they began this journey with him. Because if Jesus says, follow me, the answer is, yes, I do. And you don't look back. You go. And for 3 years, they're going to journey with him as he tells of a new kingdom, which, by the way, when you read the apostles, they really didn't get it. They weren't that. Every parable explained it to us, and even he'd explained it to them. And by the way, James and John and their mother try to separate the two from the rest of the other ones, and they go, hey, when you get to your place of power, put James on your right and John on your left. Can you imagine the other ones going, oh, thanks, guys. Literally brown nose trying to get there. And then I love Jesus' answer. You sure you really want to have what I'm going to have, which is the suffering and the grief? And by the way, James and John both went through that suffering. think Peter really believed that he was going to deny him? And I love that when he finds Peter fishing again, he says to him, go feed my sheep. Go feed my sheep. Go feed my sheep. And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. Matthew 13:44. Jesus teaches this parable, which, by the way, has already happened to Peter, James, and John. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Now, the only reason that parable makes sense is whatever was in that treasure box was going to be far worth anything and everything that this person owns. He is walking through town going, you want my VCR? You want my car? Oh, VCR, by that dated me. You want my DVD player? Man. He sold everything. I mean, it is a fire sale. Anybody can walk through the house and go, I want that. Okay, I want that. I want that. He sells everything. But notice what it says. Don't miss it. Then in his what? Joy. Because what he found in that box was going to be far better. When he gets this field and that then becomes his, puts everything else to shame. Have you found Jesus that way? Do you see him as this treasure in this field that when you get him, that you are worth letting everything else go to have him? Therefore, your job becomes how you use the job to glorify him. Your family becomes how you use this family to glorify him. Your neighborhood becomes how do I be in this neighborhood to glorify him, because he is worth it all. And he will sell everything to have this field so he can possess it. But it's with joy. But it's with joy. God has led Jody and I on incredible journeys. And again, I pray stupid prayers like, I'll go wherever you lead me. I don't know why I do it, but I do. And then he leads me to places and blows me away. When we were going to church plant, folks, I'm not a dumb guy. We looked in San Diego. San Diego is nice, right? That's where, let's go to San Diego. San Diego's a good place. There are sinners in San Diego that need Jesus. I had no plan to come to Northern California. Be near other teams I didn't like. I didn't have any plans for that. And all of a sudden, God goes, hey, let's have you look up north. Let's have you go up here. Hey, have you heard about the church of Fremont? It's going to close its doors. Hey, right? And here we are. And God goes, follow this journey. Take this old building and do what you can with it. And then when God tells you to sell it and then become a mobile church, I don't know why we're still mobile. He knows why we're so mobile, but I have no idea. I'm not that happy about it. And I tell him that a lot. But for some reason, he thinks that where he has us is what he thinks should be happening. So you know what we do? We go, okay, we'll sell it all. We'll give it to you. And if you tell us to put our nets here, this is what we're going to do. How do you give it all? I know you're thinking, well, I don't want to be a missionary. I don't think that God's asking you. What do you have? What do you do with it? My mom is a perfect example of this. My mom had the gift of hospitality. Our house was never empty. There was always someone lived with us. We had a guy named Rick Fisher who lived with us for 6 years in one of our rooms. We never saw him because he came in after we went to bed. He got it before we left, but we would check the closet, and about every 3 weeks, his stuff was still there, so we assumed he still lived there. 6 years, Rick lived there. Every intern that we had at our church, youth intern, lived in our house. Mom would move one of us out. I had double beds. I had more guys living next to me in my bedroom. My friends would come over. My dad said, I never knew when I came home how many kids would be all over his floor. Just all the time. My mom loved making pancakes and spaghetti. It's just make it all the time. I'd come home, my friends would be there to hang out with my mom and my dad. Like I was an afterthought, like, hey, how's it going? I mean, that's just the way it was. Because my mom said, this is going to be a place of hospitality. This is what I'm going to do. This is my gift. Folks, let me tell you something. She goes, this is God's house. If this is the way he wants to use it, that's the way he felt about his cars. This is what they did. And this is what's modeled for me. It's not your car, it's his. How do you use it? Maybe you do use it to take someone to a doctor's visit, or you do help, you're with your truck to help someone move, or you do something, but you start to realize he's saying this is where you can lay down your nets, and in doing so, do something amazing. And I just want to let you know that in this process, when you say it's all yours, God, then God starts doing something. So there is a hook. I'm going to tell you right now, this message has a hook. I'm going to put the pressure on you. You're going to be okay. We need Sunday school teachers. We need for you, some of you, to come help with our junior high program that's just about to break out, or to come help Brent with our high school department, or with our college, or with our 20-somethings, or you need to be helping out our women's ministry, or you need to be helping out a men's ministry, or your home just needs to be opened up so that their Bible study can happen there, or you could be a host to one of the youth groups. Maybe what you do is you start, God, what do you have? What do I have? And if you tell me to cast down my nets, let it happen. And I will tell you, God just says, look, what you have with joy, give it to me. I will use it far better than you can imagine. And the glory of the things that he blesses us with and the things that he gives us. And we say, God, let us be trusting of you in this. But are you going to be a one that says, man, it is worth it all. I give all things to have what he would have for me. Because I'm telling you, the best thing I did was leave a $60,000 job to go work with troubled teenagers, because I'm telling you, it transformed me and made me, hopefully, into a better pastor. We now support Christian Encounter Ministries as a part of our missions. Some of you might need to go there and be interns and bless kids' lives. Some of you might need to you need to go down to Mexico and work with them more. I used to get in trouble a lot as a youth pastor because I used to tell a lot of kids not to go to college. Parents don't like to hear that. And parents would make meetings with me to tell me how they were not appreciative that I told them to tell their kids not to go to college. But can I tell you, when you have a young teenager that has no idea what they want to do, to send them off to college because college will take them and mess with them, can be very dangerous. And the best thing I can say is I take kids who are on that fringe, I go, look, go serve God for a year. You'll come out of it. You might have a better plan for your life. But I wanted that kid not to go off and get a job that would get them this money so they could have a house on a hill. I wanted them to go get an education so they could serve God more mightily and more boldly. Folks, this is what it means when you give it all, when you walk away from it, when you say, okay, God, this is where you want me to put my nets down, this is what I do. Peter, James, and John, the beginning of these 12 men that would become the disciples, that would follow after him and find out that he wanted to bless them, it all started. And they said, okay, I'll follow. I'll leave it all behind, and I'll follow. And I'm sure there was fear. I'm sure there was struggle. But if this Jesus can almost sink my boat, I think he can take care of me. This Jesus can make the lame walk and the blind see and the deaf hear, and can heal my mother-in-law, and can teach these things. I'm putting my hope into him. I'm buying that field, because that's where the treasure really is. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I thank you. I thank you for your word. I thank you that you challenge us. You challenge us to put our nets down. That, Father, that it's all yours. That, Father, we just say, God, I'm yours. And, Father, when we do so, when we put our hands up and say, I'm all yours, you give us blessings and fulfillment beyond what we can imagine. You don't say it's going to be easy. You don't tell us it's going to be the thing that we would think to be the most logical thing. You'll do something crazy with it. But when we give all of ourselves to you, you do amazing things. Father, please, let's have the boldness to walk away from temporary, to walk away which we think sustains us, to walk towards that which is eternal and truly gives us fulfillment. And I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.